right, we're moving right along. We are in the middle of the listening section right now, and we're talking about finding the main idea. And right now we're going to talk about finding the main idea in the listening conversations, which is actually the student's problem. And this is so important because it's going to help you answer all of the questions that come after the conversation. So let's get into it right now. Here we are in part 2 of the importance of finding the main idea, and this time we're going to talk about conversations. Now, if you remember, there are 2 types of main idea questions, just content and just purpose. Basically, number 1, content asks you, what is this about? And the purpose is, why does the student go to see the professor? Now, if you remember in your quick guide that there are 6 passages in the listening section. 4 of them are lectures and 2 are conversations. So we're just going to talk about the 2 conversation passages. So in your conversation passages, the first question, the very first question, is either going to be just content or just purpose. It could be just purpose, which is why does the student go to see the professor, or just content is what is the problem the student is having. Okay, let's focus on the content one first, which is what is the problem the student is having. So this is going to be, what is this going to be? Yeah, usually the student's problem is the main idea. Okay, so the student's problem is the main idea. And the professor or whoever is talking to the student is going to try to help them solve their problem. So you need to try to find the problem. What's the problem in the conversation? So it's going to be a kind of complicated problem that the professor or the campus worker is going to give them some ideas on how to solve it. Okay, so the main idea is almost always the student's problem when you are listening. Okay, now, for example, sometimes they say the problem outright. This is a transcript from, I believe this is from your complete test. It says, "What's going on, Carla?" And then she says, "Well, you know, this has been a really difficult class for me. I'm really nervous. I'm scared. I was wondering if you could help me prepare or figure out a way at least to make sure I pass the final." So this is her problem and what she's looking for ideas to help solve. And that's the main idea. Okay, so you want to listen for those things as you're listening to the conversation. You might hear them say phrases like, "the problem is," "you see," "sorry, but," "so I was wondering." These are all popular ways to introduce the problem. Sometimes they're not so specific and you have to kind of figure out what the problem is. It's not said directly, but a lot of times they actually just say the problem directly and they spend the next 2 minutes talking about the problem. But you have to be careful with these just purpose, which is why does the student go to see the professor? Because they might be different than the problem. Okay, so for example, here, the kid said, and this is from your diagnostic test, he says, "I'm taking Professor Saeed's world history class. He mentioned that you have a class next semester on the same topic, and I wanted to ask you about it." So here, it sounds like the problem is that the student wants to ask about a class. But if you listen to this whole conversation, actually the problem is that the student wants her reading list, wants some advice about her reading list, this professor's reading list. So this is from the diagnostic test. So of course, if you haven't taken the diagnostic test, take it so you can listen to this. But this is an example of how this doesn't always work. Okay, so there are times where they say a problem and it could be different. So just be careful of that. And remember, if they ask you, why does the student go to see the professor? That's different than what's the problem. Okay, so they could say, they could go to the professor for a reason and then talk about a totally different problem. So just keep that in mind when you're answering the main idea for the conversations. So hopefully by now you can see the power of understanding the main idea, understanding the student's problem, so you can answer the main idea question, and also it can help you guide your thinking when you're answering the other questions that follow a conversation. All right, but that's it. Next up, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about, what are we going to talk about? The main idea in lectures. Very important topic, and looking forward to seeing you guys there. All right, next up, main idea in lectures.